I think that the argument of genocide being used to disprove the Bible is one of the least powerful arguments that any atheist has ever brought to the table. But yet it seems to be one of their favorites. It is staggering to me how many times in the comments someone will respond with blah, 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 genocide, God is evil, genocide, as if this is undermining or damning to the argument for God existing. And again, I think it is one of the weakest out there. And it goes a little something like this. God can't exist because of emotions. That is such a weak argument, to think that God can't exist because we don't like something, or the concept of people dying is kind of painful to us. And so God can't exist, or the Bible must be wrong, or those that wrote it must be wrong, etc. And that's just a terrible logical point. But I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to link it to morality. And so if you can somehow link morality being wrong against God and leveraging it against God, then supposedly the whole house of cards against God falls apart. But let's think about something for a second. Morality is either absolute or it's made up. And so, like, if you go with something like Matt Dillahunty would say that, we have to subjectively choose well-being first, and then we can build the constructs off of that, and that we imbue people with their meaning and value and worth, that moral system doesn't work, and it's going to fall all apart. And I'll explain very simply why. It's because imperfect human beings are going to be running whatever morality system that you're in, and it's never going to be quite perfect. And then some people are going to be abused in that system. And as such, do they then have to continue to comply with it? Especially if it's unfair to them, do they have to comply to a made-up system? And I tell you what the response is going to be, no, I'm going to choose my system or my well-being over everybody else's well-being. And even more so, there's a little secret about human beings. Human beings like more stuff. They like more things. They like more power, more control. And so if their well-being can be increased by, diminishing your well-being, they are going to do that. And so if we've made up some kind of morality to undermine God with it, it doesn't really work. So saying that God can't exist because I don't like that command of justice in the scripture is just a very weak command. So anyway, Alex just released a video just a couple of days ago by the time this video will post, Alex O'Connor, and it was called Alex versus Cliff and Stuart Knechtle, The Bible Commands Genocide. And I'm just going to kind of give you an overview before I dive into some main rebuttal points against that. But the point is, if Christians can't provide a good enough reason for why God commanded this act of justice, then God isn't real, or Christianity isn't true, or the writers who wrote this, or Israel who applied this metric, they were just all wrong. And simultaneously, by saying, if you can't get a good enough piece of logic, what the atheist bringing this genocide argument are saying at the same time is they're implying that they have better logic than God. Now, this is so entertaining. So basically what they are saying is that if God is real, or if Christianity is true, then they have to be able to understand it. Now that is an arrogant assumption. That is an arrogant possibility. Again, look at the argument. Oh, that can't be true. Genocide, I don't like it. Or I can't understand why God would destroy innocent people or people that I think are innocent. And so I have to be able to understand it, or God isn't real. Now, personally, I can't go out and lift physically a skyscraper or an aircraft carrier. Like if there's an aircraft carrier in the dry dock being built, I can't walk out there and pick it up. But because my ability to pick it up doesn't work, does that make the reality of the aircraft carrier any less real? Or, to change the metaphor here around a bit, what if there's a forest fire, an intense forest fire, and I want to observe it with my senses, which is, just kind of, this is being silly, but let's look at the limitations here. And so would a person say that a forest fire doesn't exist if I can't totally grasp it with my senses? So let's drop them in the middle of a forest fire and see how that comprehension goes. Or what if a person walked onto the stock market floor during the middle of an exuberant session? Are they going to say that they comprehend everything that goes on in that room? They kept up with all the ticker feeds, all the news feeds, all the actual trades, all the wheeling and dealing. But if they can't fully comprehend it, does that make it not real? So since when is the reality of something determined by whether or not a human understands it or not? So this genocide thing, like, I don't like it and I can't understand it. Both of those are terrible reasons why God can't be real or wouldn't be real if this was carried out. And further, what an atheist is saying, or a skeptic or an agnostic is saying when they say that, God has to be understandable, or there has to be an absolute human piece of logic that makes all this work, is they're saying that we have to be able to understand God with a broken mind. Because I haven't found any human beings yet that don't have a broken mind. We're also saying that we have to be able to comprehend God with limited information, which this doesn't even make sense. If God is who God is, infinite in respects, or even as the Bible described, then how in the world am I going to comprehend him with limited information or even low IQs? I have to be able to comprehend God with a low IQ. And the reason I say low IQ is because they're the smartest man in the world, Christopher Langham. His IQ is like 190, 205, 210. And then also we have artificial intelligence that what we hear pretty soon is going to be like in the 1600 level of human intelligence. And we don't have that intelligence. And so not having that intelligence, or I demand that God be comprehensible by my limited intelligence. That's not a good metric of trying to decide if something is real or not, because I don't like it and I can't understand it. Further, going with this line of reasoning with genocide, we're basically saying that men can judge God with logic. This really doesn't make good sense. And the reason I say that is because if mankind created logic, then logic is actually, less than mankind. And if God was real or did exist, wouldn't he be larger than mankind? And so how is that logic going to judge him? That doesn't make any sense. That's like saying that comprehending the rules of a basketball game, like I understand how these rules interact and work together. By that, I can measure the universe. Like it's just as separate and just as disconnected. It doesn't make any sense that you could create, or that you could judge God by logic that man created, if we created it. Or I guess there's two other possibilities, and one is that maybe logic is coexistent with God. In that case, logic could probably reveal to us some things about God, but it can't judge God, because it would just be revealing who he is. And then I guess the last alternative is that logic is subservient to God. Maybe God created logic and gave it to men, but as such, he would be above logic. Now, I don't particularly ascribe to B or C there completely in an either-or scenario. Maybe it's a combination of both, but I definitely don't think that man created logic. Also, if we attempt to use morality to underline God, if morality doesn't exist, then that doesn't really work. And here's a very philosophical or esoteric question I want to ask for the atheists and the agnostics and the skeptics out there that are really prone to thinking and who want to think deeply. Why the forced use of alignment? So in this video, as Alex is asking about, genocide and God, he wants some alignment. He wants some order. He wants structure. He wants some kind of process. He wants these things to be fully aligned. And what is this unstated rule that for something to be real, it has to be orderly or logical? Why can't it be varied or conflict? Or why can't my logic be different than your logic? And why can't our logics be in conflict? And why are you demanding that my logic be like your logic? Well, because we know that following that path leads to just total insanity and a breakdown of communication, a breakdown of understanding reality. So it all kind of points to an absolute reality and an absolute truth. But let's go into the actual piece of the video itself. Alex, right out the gate, one of the things that he asked was, is the love of God displayed in this act of genocide? Now, and he labels the video with genocide, but when actually asks the question, it's a little more tame than that. He's like, oh, is the love of God displayed basically in these verses or in this act of justice? And I'm going to say absolutely. The reason he used the term genocide, it is emotionally charged. It is a morally charged word. We already think of genocide as wrong without giving any explanation of why genocide is wrong. And so to just leverage that against goes back to, this can't be right because I don't like it or it doesn't feel right or good. But let's frame it like the scripture actually lays it out there in the way Alex actually brought it across. He's like, is the love of God displayed in this act of justice? I'm just like, absolutely. Yes. Now, it kind of disappointed me a little bit that Cliff and his son Stuart backed off on this. And they seemed to kind of squeam a little bit. And I think that's one of the reasons that Alex wanted to put this on there. And let me say this, Stuart, welcome to Apologetics. And as a nobody, this is me, as just a fan of apologetics, thank you for stepping into the arena. Cliff, thank you for some of the answers you've given me on some other things. Like, I have watched some of your videos and they've been fantastic. You have thought some deep things. But when it comes to this command or genocide or God creating justice, don't be squeamish, man. Stand your absolute ground. Stand firm on this and believe that there are reasons for this, and God will provide those reasons. So we don't have to back off of, is the Bible true or just? And Stuart, you said something about self-critiquing. No. The Bible is solid and complete and whole. Maybe I misunderstood what you mean by self-critiquing, but it is not self-correcting, if that was even remotely implied. But anyway, I wanted you to take a stronger stance, because we don't have to apologize for God in any kind of fashion. So is the love of God displayed in justice? Absolutely. Would a soldier kill for his country? Yes. Would a parent kill for his child if he had to? Absolutely. Would a spouse kill for her lover, he or she? Yes, they would. Passion has to act passionately, which actually helps to more confirm that this is the God of the Scriptures. He is going to act in some passionate fashions. However, the hang-up is, and here's the only hang-up, is that, if this country was a wicked country, then there's no hang-up. Okay, there's no hang-up. Like, we don't mind that per se. But if there are innocents in this country, if there's innocent people, then all of a sudden we have a problem. We have a problem with genocide. But we don't have a problem with genocide. There are no innocents. There are no innocent people. Now, obviously, the scripture decries this and flat out promulgates this, that everybody is broken and flawed. We're all on a death sentence anyway. But beyond that, what about looking at the wickedness of a people group in strictly an underperformance sense? Let's just say strictly from underperformance. You're like, well, I can understand killing people because they are wicked, but not because they underperform. Well, the problem is that doesn't our morality and what we prefer and what we like, doesn't it kind of ebb and flow with the people we are around? Now, atheists all the time make this accusation, oh, you're probably a Christian because you grew up in a Christian environment, or you're probably an Arab because you grew up in an Arab environment, or you're probably Hindu because you grew up in the Hindu environment, or Buddhist because you grew up in the Buddhist, etc. And so with that, I lost my train of thought. We think that our measure of what is right and wrong, we think that our measure of what is right and wrong is the measure of truth, but we don't realize it's a sliding scale. So how do we know what to really attach that to? But let's look at an extreme scenario. Let's look at God in the sake of perfection. And like I said, underperformance can be seen as utter wickedness. So think of it like this. Think of a neurosurgeon that is one of the premier neurosurgeons in the world who is incredibly skilled with his hands. And, he's 29 years old and he has performed some marvelous surgeries. And there is one of the world's greatest literary writers, some of the world's most compelling poetry, and he's written some novels that are now moving the world. And we find out that he has a brain tumor, and this neurosurgeon, can actually operate faster and quicker than robots can, and he knows what he's doing. But let's just say on the day of the surgery that he decides to, stay home and play video games with his skills, with his very awesome hands and, perceptions, because it's better for his ego, I guess. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be his subjective choice, right? And so could you not see underperformance in that scenario being wickedness? Or what about a molecular biologist who had cured minor cancer, like 2 or 3 minor cases of cancer? He had just cured them. And so now he just decided that taking his profits, off that, he just wants to sit back and relax and drink in the Bahamas. He just wants to be drunk. And you're like, listen, dude, you're on the cusp. Like, you've already cured some minor cancers, and all of our scientists are struggling with this, but you somehow or another seem to have the brilliant mind and understanding, and you've had some of these breakthroughs, and it sure looks like you're headed that direction. Why don't you take us over the edge? And he goes, I don't think so. I'm just kind of done. Underperformance can be wickedness. Or what about the best coder in the world that found out with AI that he could write programs and could actually figure out with lasers or whatnot how to transport physical objects from one side of the world to the other in the blink of an eye. And he could cure all the, carbon emissions, outputs, etc. And he just decides, I'd rather just go climbing. I want to get in my van and just kind of drive around, in Grand Canyon and go climbing. I don't really want to do anything for anybody else. It's, underperformance could be wickedness. Now, we always want to measure wickedness by what we think wickedness is, but we never want to expand to the level of perfection. So when you get to the level of God, the more perfect he is, the more that wickedness pops up, the more detestable it is. And I can give you a slight example of this. Like, if your microwave is underperforming, you get really tired of it. If your fridge is giving you 58-degree food, let's say 62-degree food instead of cold food, you're like, oh, this is underperforming. It's disgusting and horrible. And if your computer is lagging and it won't upload and it won't do the things you want, you get furious and upset with it because it is underperforming and it's not doing what it was created for, and you get furious with it. Why would God not be furious at possible wicked underperformance? Further, we're talking about, genocide being the killing of innocents. Well, they killed these people in battle, so we don't have any problem with the men. The men were fighters, so we don't really care if the men get killed, okay, which is kind of interesting all in and of itself. But we really have a problem when it gets to killing the women and the children. Was God fair here? Like, what's wrong with God? Like, surely he's evil, he's wicked, this story ain't true, or this ideology is false because I don't like it because they're killing innocents. How do we know they were innocent? How do we know they were going to continue to be innocent? We don't. But further than that, do you possibly, let's give God half an ounce of credit, since some of you have to understand this to be able to accept it. Let's give God half an ounce of credit. What if the women, after all the men had been killed off, what if the women secretly and collectively started saying, we're going to tear this country apart from the inside out. We're going to seduce these men and turn them against their wives. We're going to spread gossip. We're going to teach the little children evil things about their parents. We're going to slack on performance, or we're going to gain favor from this person to turn it against that person. Do you not think that a plethora of wicked people could tear a country completely apart? Or what about the children? Like, how do we know that forward-looking, that these children weren't going to do things that would totally wipe out all the good about them? You see, it's so funny because when we look at a child in an innocent instant, we think, oh, they're good. But have you not noticed that some people do bad, horrible, wicked things that are so bad, it makes you lose all sense of goodness about them completely? Now, from a distance, maybe not, but get personal and subjective with it, and then it does. So, or what if you came in and slaughtered truly innocent people and then they went to the afterlife in a positive sense? Like, I don't know what there is to wrestle with here. And here, or what if they had, I don't know, I'm going to leave it there. So far we have genocide is not right under God because I don't like it or I can't understand it. But there's also a last mistake that is made that atheists make, and this is really humorous to me, knowing their stances on other things. But like, one of the mistakes that the atheists make here is they overvalue life. What? Overvalue? What? You wouldn't expect maybe a Christian to say that, but like, and let me clarify. I am with you on this. Subjectively, I'm all in. I care about my life. I have spent most of my life chasing after life and life-giving things. I care about my life and your life. One of the reasons I'm on here, I care about the life of the country, the life of other countries and people in other places. But atheists tend to overvalue life in a subjective sense because we are a microscopic cog in the wheel. There are billions of human beings coming and going daily, hourly, by the minute. Human beings are just coming into existence and going out of existence, along with plants and animals and germs and microbes and what other living substances there can be in the world. And so I think atheists tend to very much overvalue life. They're like, oh, God can't be real because of the taking of life here. And they don't realize that the whole mechanism of the universe is taking life on a regular and methodical basis under God's hand and provision. So what would be any different than him shortening the time scale? There would be no different. It would actually be equivalent because he's in control, and that is what he chooses. So this overinflated skewing, it's all because we actually like our life. Because this ain't just about innocent people there. That's the application per se, but the thing that an atheist is really concerned about is, oh, well, is God got the right to wipe me out because I'm not abiding by his standards or whatnot? I really like my life. I like and value life. Well, that's great that you like and value life, but isn't that emotional as well? I want you to think about these things. So, like, if you're going to be logical, be logical. Like, without the complete explanation of emotions or negative emotions and pain, you really don't have any leg to stand on with morality, especially if it doesn't come from any place. And if all this is just subjective material and personal likes and dislikes, all of that is emotional. Be logical. If you're going to be logical, you have to accept the reality that these things are, that we are being emotional. Now, if we're going to be emotional, we've already been emotional. We're trying to emotionally judge God. But if you're going to be emotional, or let's say human, if you're actually going to be human and actually begin to think about these things more broadly, then I've got some propositions for you that would actually be life-giving. So tune into the rest of this channel. Keep following for more information on this life-giving truth. Follow most Christian stations to find this life-giving truth. And if you'll just go where the truth is taking you, you'll come to the same conclusion that I have, that Jesus Christ is Lord.